Moyers. Bill, Ronald Reagan, Gorbachev meeting hours beyond what anyone had expected. Do you get a sense that they are beginning to manage the superpower relationship, something they hadn't been doing before? Even after Geneva, we had these little crises. They seem to be willing to get rid of problems in the relationship quickly and get on to the business at hand.
Well, I think they've snatched the relationship, the dialogue, whatever one wants to call it, back in front of that rushing locomotive that we saw this summer in the Danilov, Zakharov affair. And you remember after President Reagan ordered the bombing of Libya, Foreign Minister Shevardnadze canceled a meeting with Schulz. This summer, that fresh start they had in Geneva was trembling. It was in much trouble. And suddenly, Gorbachev proposes this meeting, and Reagan, against the advice of some of his advisors overnight, says, yes, I want to go. Impulsively, intuitively, they're here, and as a result of that, they seem to be putting this delicate, fragile process of relations back on the track. But
it almost seems that Reagan's knee-jerk reactions have changed. When the Danilov jailing took place, his knee-jerk reaction wasn't to scream and attack and to accuse. His first reaction was, well, we can solve this. He was kind of forced into a tougher position by the conservatives. It used to be that his knee-jerk reaction was to not trust and to cause breaks or escalate the problem. I see an enormous change. Do you as well?
I think President Reagan, after 5 years in the presidency, is showing a maturity toward the Soviet Union that comes to many presidents after they've been in office. You have to remember that President Reagan had very little, if any, foreign policy experience, none, in fact, before he came to the White House. But we don't elect our presidents from the Council on Foreign Relations. We elect them from the grassroots of America. And I think the strength of his conviction about his country and the strength of his certainty about his own convictions may be the best preparation for the kind of dealing he is doing. So I think, yes, he sees the Soviet Union. He hasn't changed his mind about them. He knows that a communist is a communist is a communist. But he also knows that there's a pragmatic necessity of dealing with them that you don't see if you're not in that Oval Office in charge of your country's relations with this other superpower.
And you don't get a sense that he used to see that.
Well, he was a man of deep conviction, growing out of his experience in Hollywood, dealing with the communist effort there in the United States in the 40s. He developed very strong ideological opinions about them. I don't think he shed those, but I think he sees that Gorbachev is not the new man in the way that Lenin and Marxists and the Marxist dialogue suggests he's a new man, but he's a new man of the world. As Jonathan Sanders said yesterday, he's a man at ease in the world. He speaks the language of the global village, which is this medium that we're in, and that he is trying to put a face toward the West that is nonetheless firm, but open, and is reaching for what he can get from the West without giving up very much.
Gorbachev has made, it's clear, a calculation that this is the man he wants to make his deal with. He knows that in the past, every time there's a new president, the Soviets have to go all the way back to the beginning and retread the ground 2 years, maybe more. You get a sense that this is the man he wants to make the deal with. He knows that Reagan can get anything ratified.
I think he realizes that Reagan is a nimble enough conservative to keep the right wing in line, and that, look, George Bush is never going to be able to manage that crowd on the right, nor even will Jack Kemp in this sort of thing. That Ronald Reagan is one of the most forceful, formidable American politicians since Franklin D. Roosevelt, and if you don't take advantage of these last 2 years to get a deal almost like Nixon and the Soviet Union, Nixon and China, you've got to go to the strength of a conservative to make a deal that will stick politically.
You know what tickles me so much is just the idea that Ronald Reagan is going to end up being the darling of the liberals in the country, and the conservatives are going to see him go out of office blasting away at it.
That could be premature, Leslie, because I think Ronald Reagan is not going to do anything that fundamentally shows he has changed his coat toward the Soviet Union. I think they don't like the fact that the right-wingers do not like the fact that he's here at all. No deal is a good deal to them. But the moderate Republicans, with whom Mr. Reagan also represents, believe that a deal hard-driven is a good deal. I don't think Mr. Reagan's going to do anything here that threatens a fundamental breach with his solid conservative support. After all, he's got the rest of the country to think about. He said 5 years ago that the only way to get arms control was to build more arms. All right, 5 years have passed. He spent, what, trillions of dollars to build those arms, this massive buildup. He's got now to prove that he was right to be right with a capital R, that he was correct when he said if we're going to get the Soviet Union to the table, we've got to build up our strength. He's built up our strength. his administration, his legacy will be blemished if he doesn't in fact prove that he was right.
But he also said that that buildup was needed so he could bargain with it. Do you think he's ready to bargain?
Yes.
With FDI and...
Well, I think he's willing to give on the rough edges of the relationship, that he is prepared, he knows how far he can go, and that he wants to keep the dialogue open.
Very quickly, how much do you think they really worked out things here as opposed to how much was pre-cooked?
Well, I think just about everything that's happened here has happened here. I mean by that, these two men are dealing as politicians in the pit of a battle. They do not have a blueprint. They did not come here with a game plan. I don't believe they did. I think Mr. Gorbachev was impulsive in proposing this, trying to get beyond the Danilov-Zakharov affair, beyond the Soviet spy issue. I think Mr. Reagan replied intuitively, and I think they came like two boxers in the 15th round saying, okay, throw away the book and let's see what happens.
Well, that would be quite unique for summits, wouldn't it?
Well, they're good politicians, both of them.
Thank you, Bill Moyers. Our cartoon this week is from Paul Conrad of the Los Angeles Times. In the interest of missile reduction and disarmament, we sank one of our nuclear submarines. Now it's your turn. I'm Lesley Stahl, reporting from Iceland. Join us again next week.
This portion of Face the Nation was sponsored by the financial professionals at Payne Weber Incorporated. Face the Nation with National Affairs correspondent Lesley Stahl was produced by CBS News, which is solely responsible for the selection of today's guests and topics. This broadcast originated in Reykjavik, Iceland.